You right there guys, this is Dale of Lone Wombat Airsoft, and today we're taking a look at the Ground Zero National Airsoft Event 2015. If you've not heard of it before, Ground Zero is one of the largest UK airsoft events with over 2,000 people turning up to this one, so you can expect an insane amount of people over the full weekend experience. Now for clarity's sake, even though most of my video reviews and first impressions, I need to point out that I've already been to the 2011, 12 and 14 Ground Zeros as well as to this one this year. So just to keep that in mind as I go through this video review, I may make references to previous experiences as well. So as always, there are YouTube annotations to be found here and here. So if there's a specific part of the video you want to skip ahead to, say you want to find out what the terrain on site's like or what the event has to offer, you can click on any of those and it's going to go straight ahead to that part. And so without any further delay, let's dive straight on into the review. So the site's located in Sunderton Wood, Ringwood, which is near both Bournemouth and Southampton, but a bit more inland. I've included the site address in the description down below, so if you're using a sat-nav to get to the event, you can just put that in and it's going to get you there, no problems whatsoever. The only trouble you will get on the journey, however, is because the event is always hosted on a bank holiday weekend, there will be traffic jams along the way, and depending on what time of the day you set off at, you could be sat there for a considerable amount of time. So your best bet is to get there as early as physically possible. Not only will you avoid the traffic jams, you'll also get the opportunity to set up campsite and pick a decent spot before everyone else gets there. Once you do arrive at the site, you're going to take a right-hander off the main road and go down this loose stone path. Now, you'll get to the site entrance and you'll see it on the right with the main tent and everything. You can't drive through that, that's for pedestrians only. You need to go straight past it, over a cattle grid, and you'll see on the right the field where you can set up camp. Once you're actually past that cattle grid, you can make a right turn and dive in, but there's also like a big ditch on the right-hand side. You can get in further down, but avoid that ditch at all costs. You don't want to be barreling your car into that. That'd be a horrible way to start off your weekender, so just be aware of that. Once you're actually in the field itself, it's very easy to just set up camp. If you want to find an empty spot, just make sure it's not on the main road and don't obviously go right next to your next people. Be a bit considerate about where you go, but pick a decent spot and then that's yours for the weekend. So the price for the 3-day weekend is £85. Now you do have to pay a sizable chunk of this as a deposit beforehand, but you can pay it all in one go over the months, or you can even pay the remainder once you actually turn up on the day if you so desire. It's important to note as well, this gets you an entry into the free raffle where you can win some airsofting kit up into including some brand new airsofting guns themselves. If you're wanting a hire gun throughout the weekend, then £30 is going to get you that. If you also have you need some clothes because you don't want to knacker up your own ones, you can get a pair of combats for £5. Now, there's another option as well for public toilets, like the public ones on offer, the Portaloo type, and there's a lot of them, but because it's a big airsofting festival and there's a lot of people there, they will get knackered by the end of the event. Even though the guys on site tried to keep on top of them, they will get in quite a state by the end of Sunday. So if you're part of a big airsofting team or maybe have a phobia of public toilets, I can't say I blame you in that regard, then 120 quid will get you your own private Portaloo throughout the weekender. In terms of the rest of the facilities on site, if you want some cooked food, there's a selection of vendors that are open early morning, late night, so you can start the day with a full English and end it with a greasy burger if you really feel like it, and I can't blame you in that regard, they're quite nice. However, the main feature of this is the airsoft shop that they have on there. Every single year, 01 comes down and sets up this massive tent and just fills it with all the airsofting stuff they have. If it's on the 01 website, chances are it's in this shop as well. You can just easily spend hours looking at all the guns on the racks, all the upgraded parts on offers, scopes, mags, ammo, gas, everything you could possibly need as an airsofter is in that shop. So you could just, as I say, spend hours looking at it all and just wish you had a bigger wallet. So the staff on site that I did get talking to were very knowledgeable about what was going on with the weekend. If I needed help with anything or I needed to know something, they always had an answer for me. They were also quite helpful when I was buying gas mags for me new SMG8 and the mags wouldn't work, so they were very helpful in swapping them out for me. There was a bit of an issue with the shop on the weekend though. The tills kept going down, so it actually opened up late on the Friday, and halfway through the Saturday while I was in queue, it shut down, and that meant we had to hang around for an extra hour while they were trying to fix things. In the field, however, the marshals were very easy to identify, but it is very easy to just go an entire day and not see a single one. Unless you're at a major engagement zone or your own team's base, it's very easy to just miss them entirely. There aren't a whole lot of them compared to the sheer size of the field. What they do as well is random chrono checking, but this is the second year in a row that I've been and I've not been checked once. The last time I saw them do it was back in 2012, and what they do is they go to the dead zones and they'd only let the people out if they'd actually had their guns chronoed. But as I say, this is 2 years in a row and I've not been tested once, so they really need to step up the chrono testing for that. It may be an idea to do it beforehand so you don't have to wait until Saturday. So maybe you set up at the shooting range, and as people are testing their guns on there, you can give them coloured tags to say they've been tested. That might reduce the load you need to test mid-game or at the start of it. However, the biggest problem that Ground Zero has, and has always had in my opinion, is hit taking. Now, I know full well that the majority of players are just there to have a good time, they're here to have a laugh, but there are a significant amount of them that like to think they're a bit invincible. As we're going through the site, on the Friday and most of the Saturday, hit taking was brilliant. Now, for the Friday, this was the pistol and shotgun game and it was instant respawns, and I think that was the main reason why. But as the weekend went on, I think the mentality of, oh, these guys aren't taking a hit, so I'm not going to take mine, kind of kicked in a little bit. Now, I think the main reason that starts all this off is to do with the dead zones. Once you actually get hits, you have to go to a dead zone, and depending on which one you're in, you have to wait 5, 10 or 15 minutes before you can actually get back in the game. And what this means is it's entirely possible for you to be sitting around for 15 minutes, take 2 steps out of the dead zone, shot, have to go back in, and you just wasted half an hour. Now, I really don't agree with the timings on the dead zone. Basically, you're giving the players an incentive not to take their hits, which is something you really don't want to be doing, because it's just going to lower the whole mood of the entire thing. And once people start thinking they're invincible, all the competitive elements of GZ just goes straight out the window. It's useless at that point. So while I do think that it is an issue, I do think that it's always going to be there. The problem is, even if you do fix the dead zone timings, you've got so many players on site, it is a nightmare to try and keep an eye on all of them. There's no way you can do it. Unless they built a 4th team comprised of nothing but marshals, there's no way they're going to have enough eyes watching all the engagements going on. So hit taking, I'm afraid, is going to be a problem, and I think it always will be, unfortunately.
They're right down this path. Do you see him? I could have sworn. Hit! Hit others! Could have sworn that got him.
That said, however, off the field, staff were quite friendly, and all the players that I managed to get talking to, regardless of what team they were on, they're all quite well-mannered, and you could just have a nice laugh with them. It's good to be surrounded by a couple of thousand people who all share the same interest as you, especially one as vague as airsofting. So the general atmosphere off-field was absolutely brilliant, second to none. But as I say, if you come in next year, just keep an eye out for it on hit takers. So the terrain on offer at Ground Zero is unlike anything I've seen at any other airsoft sites before. You get aspects of it in other sites, but nowhere compares to the sheer scale of this place. They have so many different types of woodland in one little area. You can go from really dense ferns that you physically have to force your way through because they're that thick, to some really thin trees, to these like almost hedge maze in the middle of the map. And the actual hedges have these holes in where you can just dive into the rhodey bushes, crawl around for a bit and pop out on a completely different set of the map. So it's like a maze within a maze. So it's incredibly good fun playing through all these different types of terrain. The only place that comes close is Black Dagger up in Dronfield, but as I say, even then, there's nothing that matches the scale of this that I've seen up until this point. If you're into your woodland, then you're definitely going to absolutely adore it here. If you're more of an indoor player or more tight quarters CQB thing, then you might get a bit frustrated by the sheer density of all the shrubs, because they do tend to catch BBs and it obscures lines of sight, so it's hard to see your targets. There's plenty of times where you can just be walking along and then your ankle will just get riddled because there's someone hiding in a bush that you had absolutely no chance of spotting. So not for everyone certainly, but it's the type of airsofting I love, and it's not pure woodland. There is also buildings and fortifications. You've got fire bases, a big fort in the middle of a village which everybody tries to get ferried towards at the end of the day by the marshal for one massive engagement. So you've got an insane amount of terrain on offer here, and it's incredibly fun to play through. So in terms of the attractions on offer, we'll start with the main one, and that's the big airsofting game. Now this goes on Saturday and Sunday and it does not stop. So you can drop in and out whenever you feel like it. If you want to break for lunch or maybe you just got up late in the morning, you can just head in whenever you feel like it. The objectives there range from several things like you have to hold a base at this time and keep it for half an hour or something, or there's an objective in the forest here, you need to get it, bring it back to base. Or you can go to the enemy HQ, raid all the objectives they've collected, maybe even assassinate their commander, but don't do that on your own, there's a lot of enemy defenders. But on top of that, there's a load of side objectives as well, like these little drug packets that you can pick up and bring back to base, and also some uranium fuel rods. If you get enough of those, you can nuke an enemy team's HQ. So plenty to do in the main games. But also outside of that, they had a lot of activities on where on the Friday they had a pistols and shotgun only game. And I think even the event organisers were surprised by how many people wanted to get involved with this. It was incredibly good fun. They had to simplise it, so there was only 2 teams, not the 3. But I think that worked in its favour to try and keep it simple, and that was incredibly good fun to do. On the Saturday night as well, there was also a night game. So if you've got some NVGs or tracer rounds, that's where you wanted to be to get some use out of those. And it's like something out of Star Wars, seeing all these tracer rounds flying through the air. It's incredibly cool to see. Outside of the main games though, they also had a G&G shooting booth where they had one of their target systems on the wall, so you had to knock out the targets as quick as you could, and then you and a mate had to run through their CQB course, take out the targets and try and do it as quick as you can. So that was incredibly good fun. It was free and you could do it as many times as you like, so that was really enjoyable. And the winners of that apparently got a free trip to Taiwan to compete in the G&G Worldwide Championships. Good on them. Aside from that as well, obviously you've got the 01 Airsoft shop, but if you don't want to buy anything new, they did have a bring and buy sale, so anyone can just come up, find a patch of grass and just spread out all the stuff that they wanted to sell on, and you can pick up something cheap second hand. As well as that, they had a lot of all the smaller stores for different manufacturers. I know Viper was there, was selling a load of clothing, as well as some other things you could get like dog tags engraved. There was a store showing off some new grenades, that kind of thing, so plenty of other things to see and do. There's also clay pigeon shooting. If you fancy shooting a real gun, they'd give you a shotgun, fire some clays into the air, and you could have to see how many you could take out, which also benefited the main game because you could hear all the shotguns going off in the background, so really added some atmosphere to it. For normal airsofting guns, the shooting range has been massively improved. The way it used to be was they just had an area where you just fire off into the trees, but what they have now is a much more open one, so you can actually see where your shots are going and some clearly marked targets with whatever range they're at, so it's very easy to tune your gun. You can see what a minimum engagement is, or just see just how far you can actually shoot. So incredibly good work on the shooting range this year, I have to say. So not even including the main game, there's a hell of a lot of things going on at GZ, so you're never going to be bored. There is always something for you to be seeing and doing. So ultimately then, is the Ground Zero National Airsoft event worth paying a visit to? Now, to me, that's not even a question. If you've never been to this event before, you absolutely need to go next year and see what it's all about. It is incredibly good fun. When you do get there, don't expect to find a very tightly run, serious milsim operation. This is very much an airsofting festival. It's a lot more laid back and fun, and as I say, because there is some hit-taking issues, it just chucks the competitive element right out the window when some people think they're going to be unkillable for the day. However, saying that, there's an atmosphere here that you will not find at any other airsoft site. You've got a couple of 100 people on your team all chanting before game on's called. It's incredibly good fun, and just being surrounded by thousands of people that all enjoy the same thing you do, it's incredibly rare to find. If you are thinking of turning up next year though, I highly recommend you bring as many people with you as you can. Go as your own unit, your own little team. Half the fun is in just hanging around with your mates and seeing what this place has to offer as a group. Even when you're just back at camp trying to get your shitty little barbecue going to get some dinner on, it's all about just hanging out with your mates at an airsofting festival surrounded by plenty of other people that enjoy the same thing. As one of my mates said to me, it's like a music festival set in Jurassic Park and everybody has guns, and I don't know about you guys, but that sounds like a hell of a lot of fun to me. Now, I hope you've enjoyed my video review of the Ground Zero National Airsoft Event 2015. If you've got any questions you'd like to ask, maybe you want to share your own experiences of it, just leave it in the comment section down below for other people to see, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And until next time, this has been Dale of Lone Wombat Airsoft.
Here we go, guys! I'm going to give you a